there is an element of glamour too in teaching, where education and edtech revolution is not about teaching students, it should be about teaching the teachers.
Always on your phone and your attention span has become smaller. But education doesn't happen like that. You know, that is what I would like to believe. Teaching the students to apply the knowledge.
Yes.
Right? So I think we
apply the knowledge from different perspectives.
Deb and Shabbir here, co-founders of Edukemy. You'll see us more together. So Shabbir, we talked about EdTech 1.0 and what we are trying to do with EdTech 2.0. So obviously a lot of things have changed for teachers, for students, for the whole market. But you as a teacher and you especially in the UPSC sector, what do you think are the key challenges of teachers today, and how should teachers behave, or given all the things that have changed in the new world?
Exciting times. The kind of proliferation I've seen of teachers and the growth of teachers, teaching has now become a sought after a profession. I remember back then, 2 or 3 decades ago, it was still not as sought after, and what's changed is there is an element of glamour too in teaching. YouTube, presenters. So very nice, very nice. So many youngsters have come in, and they've come in as a matter of choice. But what I think, when I think one area for them to work, or for us teachers have to work on, is developing writing skills. Developing answer writing skills in particular. Because there's no dearth of content information being delivered to students. I can read an article, I can understand it, I can always make notes and tell and explain the concept. But I think the problem continues to be, even if students understand the concept, even if students appreciate what the topic is about, the challenge of writing and reproducing it in the context of questions asked still remains.
So one example I would take, right? I think you recently covered the Ukraine situation, right?
Yes, yes.
And everyone knows about the Ukraine situation. So we all know, what cities have been conquered by Russia, where are the forces moving, what's NATO saying, what's happening in Putin's head. But given that situation, where is the learning here, right, in terms of answer writing skills? What kind of questions are going to be asked? So as a teacher, how would you approach a topic like this? I mean, it's happening, everyone knows, the facts are all known, like you said, right?
Yes, yes.
So how would you do that?
So I think as teachers, a big leap will be anticipating what questions can be asked. Like, for example, while we know about the Ukraine and Russia crisis, we have to anticipate if there's a question asked about trade reforms in India, a question asked about what are the security challenges of India, how can we link the Ukraine issues to Indian perspective? Or similarly, if there are issues related to maybe a future economic recession, how does India intend to manage that, and in the backdrop of Ukraine crisis? So for a teacher, we have to anticipate what are the different possibilities through which this question or this topic has to be analyzed, and again, how do we write about it? Because I feel no matter what we teach, if we do not have the ability to guide a student to write the information in 2 pages, maybe about 150, 180 odd words, students will always have a challenge. So a teaching challenge is not a challenge only about the presentation or speaking skills. It's not only a oratory, it's not only a presentation skill in terms of how we speak. It's also a problem about how do we give a student feedback on what he has written. And that's not possible till a teacher himself has written answers, has checked answers, has developed content anticipating the possible perspectives. So I think that's a challenge.
So in other words, you are teaching the students to apply the knowledge,
yes,
right? So I think we
apply
talk
the knowledge from different perspectives.
exactly,
Yes,
right? How Russia thinks about the war versus how NATO thinks about the war versus how Europe thinks about the war, or India, trade policies of India. Now, you know, a mundane topic, right? So this was probably an easier example, but you know, like you teach geography, you know, someone's wants to learn about the Earth's crust, and the information is all out there, right? You can go to Wikipedia, I can understand where the Earth's crust is, what are different layers, what kind of minerals go into it. So as a teacher, when you are, I'm sure, ton of times you've seen these kinds of dreary topics come up, and how do we ensure that we understand the application of these? And you know, students often miss out because, oh yeah, this is a boring topic, I have to read it, memorize it. So as a teacher, how do you approach such topic?
I think some bit of experience and years of dwelling on issues, themes, that probably helps. Because when we are teaching one topic, it's very important to keep a very broad, wide canvas behind, because the topic can have social dimensions, technology dimensions, geopolitical dimensions. The topic can have historical, cultural dimensions. So the only way to deal with it is, once we understand one topic, then we must step back and learn, or probably put efforts into seeing what are the possible linkages across different themes, across different disciplines. So I think the education across sectors is coming of age, because we are truly in interdisciplinary teaching and learning.
It's a great point, because you know, this whole thing about, I think NEP talks about multidisciplinary aspects of
Yes,
education.
the education policy, yes,
And
absolutely.
I think those, when we grew up, there was physics, chemistry, biology, social studies, but I think those subjects we now realize don't exist in silos, right?
Yes.
They are deeply linked, and how to understand the linkages becomes extremely important. So yeah, I mean, how do we change from just providing infotainment to students
Yes.
to actually imparting learning? I think that's where you're going towards.
I would love to propose this, and I would love to see this take off in some ways, where education and edtech revolution is not about teaching students, it should be about teaching the teachers.
Wow.
Okay, it should not be about teaching the aspirants, it should be about teaching, training, and very intense training of the educators, because I think that's the responsibility that they have. Anything that they teach and information does not get conveyed in the spirit that it should have been, it can create big negative impact.
Absolutely. So
teachers training, I think, is more important, or as important as students' education.
So teachers definitely being disrupted, they have to think about new ways.
Yes, yes.
What about students? You know, one thing that you know, I personally that stirs me up quite a bit is that for a long time I don't think education has been about students. It has been about the content, it has been about the guru in most cases, but it has not been about the student in terms of how do I move forward. So how do you think that students in the new world, in this world, should study? It's definitely different from how we studied, right, 20, 30 years back. So your thoughts?
Dave, this is where I look up to technology and your intervention, because it is technology which can help identify learning methods, learning styles. Technology should be helping how to develop content relevant to learning styles, and then perhaps we can guide students in how to read, in how to understand, and how to consume, internalize. Till that happens, I think in the rush of acquiring information, in the impatience that we have to know things, the unrealistic time goals that we set for ourselves as a part of reduced attention span. I think students should learn to periodically and as often as possible step back from what they have learned or step back with what they have learned and introspect. Sit down and dwell and think and rethink on what they have learned. Be it writing skills, be it memorizing skills, the involvement of the student should not be limited to a reading article, reading a book. The involvement should include internalization, and that's not going to happen if students don't think and dwell and invest themselves at a deeper level.
And to this point, I think introspection, thinking and doing too, right? So reproducing what you learned in class. In tech we say do, fix, repeat, right? So you do something, you fix it, and then you repeat the cycle.
Yes.
And then this really has a value because at each step you're learning something and you're putting that learning back. I think it makes total sense. One thing I tell my son is that not to flip through Instagram all the time or YouTube all the time. And I see that a lot of people do that. A lot of young people also do that. That you're always on your phone and your attention span has become smaller. But education doesn't happen like that. That is what I would like to believe. That we have to, like you said, draw away and set those things aside and really focus on what we are doing.
Yes.
Awesome.